Well, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want you to know we're really thrilled that you have joined us today, and I should remind everyone that this meeting is actually being recorded. But I want to welcome you to the first meeting of Governor Moore's Redistricting Advisory Commission. I want to thank my fellow members for their willingness to serve with me. We're all honored to be here, as we know that working together over the next month or so, we're going to listen to Marylanders from across the state on the question of whether Maryland should redraw its congressional lines and what that map would look like. It's my hope that we will be able to work collaboratively and quickly give the governor and General Assembly the time that they need should they choose to draw new lines. Now, while I have never served in Annapolis, I have long appreciated the legislature's ability to disagree without being disagreeable. As Speaker Jones always says, we're going to conduct ourselves in decency and in order, and we will commit ourselves to the kind of decorum and discussion that we see in the Maryland Senate under Senate President Ferguson, who is also with us today. Now, today's meeting is organizational in nature, and I hope to get our next two meetings in before Thanksgiving. I expect that those meetings will be virtual as we work to secure locations for in-person sessions. And today, the Maryland Department of Planning will give us a quick briefing on the census numbers that we'll be working with. And so before that, I'll ask each member of the commission to please introduce themselves.
I'm Ray Morris. I'm the mayor of Cumberland, Maryland.
Brian Frosch, recovering political hack, I guess you could say.
Chair Wilson.
Definitely 84B to Mr. Senate President. I'm Chairman C.T. Wilson, member of the House Economic Matters Committee, District 28, Charles County, Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill Ferguson, I have the honor of serving as the Senator for the 46th District and President of the Senate. It's a pleasure to see you and the other members of the Commission as well. Happy Veterans Day to our distinguished Chair of the Economic Matters Committee. I appreciate his service enormously. And Madam Chair, I don't know when would be the appropriate time to just sort of on questions, process, protocols. When would you like to work through those?
No, I think what we're going to do is when we conclude getting all of are you asking today how we talk about the rules and set the guidelines for? We're going to have a presentation in just a moment.
Sure.
That I think will give us some additional information.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Senator Alsobrooks, are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, I'm ready for the presentation. Thank you.
All right. All right. You can see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So let's just start off by talking about why we take the census. Good evening. My name is Kristen Fleckenstein. I'm the Deputy Secretary for the Maryland Department of Planning. With me here this evening is Assistant Secretary Al Sandara, who heads up the State Data and Analysis Center. Tonight, we're going to present to you a little bit of information about the census, particularly the 2020 census, because those are the numbers we're going to be using for this process. And why do we even do it? Well, the founding fathers told us that we should. The founding fathers told us that we will do a census every 10 years and use those figures for reapportionment. There is no law restricting mid-cycle redistricting in Maryland. There is no law that says that it cannot be done. There is a law that merely says that it must be done at least every 10 years. And what is the census? It is that unofficial cataloging of the population. It details age, sex, race, ethnicity. And in the US, obviously, we do it every 10 years. People are mailed their census packet to fill out, or they can go online and do it in self-response. For those who don't go online and do self-response, enumerators from the U.S. Census Bureau will come to your door, as we all know, knock on your door and get that information if they can from you. And the questions they're going to ask are those things that we talked about a moment ago: age, sex, race, ethnicity. Do you rent or own a home? Do you have non-family living in your home? Is it a multi-generational home? Are there multiple families living together under one roof? Then they take that data and they use that data, as you all know. They use that data in assisting tribal, federal, state, local governments in planning and implementing a multitude of programs and services that include education, healthcare, transportation, infrastructure, social security, emergency response. It also helps us forecast for our future infrastructure needs and determining what areas are eligible for housing assistance and rehabilitation loans. The pot of money that is available in this process is about $675 billion annually in federal funds. And when you break down each person responding to the census, Maryland gets about $1,850 per person per year of federal funding through that program. So it's really important that when Marylanders are counted, as many that we can count as possible are counted, because that's the kind of money we get for each person for all of those important services that people use every day. And obviously, we use those numbers for redistricting for congressional and state legislative districts. In the state of Maryland, the governor must appoint essentially a main liaison to work with the U.S. Census Bureau. In Maryland, that individual is Secretary Rebecca Flora, who serves at the Maryland Department of Planning with us. The chief liaison for data that is sent by the U.S. Census Bureau to the state of Maryland is Assistant Secretary Al Sandara, who you'll hear from later this evening. As such, MDP basically manages all of the census data that comes in Maryland, demographic data. We also support the Census Bureau in some of their programs and projects as well. But it's because of that interaction and keeping that data that MDP has historically been part of the redistricting process, because of the analysis that has to be done with all of that census data. So how did we do? We used a lot of data-driven outreach. How did we do it, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. We did a lot of data-driven outreach. We did customized outreach by looking at geography. What might work to convey why you need to take the census in Frederick might be different than what you have to use in Annapolis to convince people to take the census. And of course, as you all may recall, the census was done in 2020 when there was a pandemic, and all of the plans that had been put into place leading up to the census to reach people by billboards and bus wraps and other things when they're out of their homes, of course, were no longer possible. And therefore, we had to switch over and switch gears and really try to meet people in their homes digitally and other ways so that they would know that they had to take the census and why it was important. Because a lot of those people were using services during that time, and that actually helped us make people understand the importance of it. When all is said and done, Maryland finished 9th in the nation for self-response. More than 2.2 million Maryland households were counted, representing a total enumeration rate of 99.9% for the state of Maryland. To get to that process, though, there is a lot of work that's done in the years leading up to the census. And I'm going to turn it over to Al Sandara now to tell you a little bit more about what goes in to making the census possible. Al?
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Fleckenstein. I'm going to highlight a couple of programs that we have done to assist with the counting of the census. The block boundary suggestion program, we look at all the census blocks that are in Maryland, over 80,000 of them, and redraw them or suggest changes to the Bureau based on increase in jobs and population. And LUCA, or the Local Update of Census Address Program, makes sure that the Census Bureau has all the residential addresses of Marylanders so they can reach out and send the census forms. And the other program I would like to highlight is the voting district project, the precincts updates. We transmit the latest census precincts to the Census Bureau so they can release population for that precincts, which are used in redrawing of our legislative and congressional districts as a background. There are other programs as well. I'm not going to go into them, but if there's any interest, I would be more than happy to do a separate presentation for them. Slide. So what information is available? As the Deputy Secretary mentioned, like there are information on race, ethnicity, and age, but also people 18 years and over are also reported. This is used for tabulating the voting age population. And the details by race, obviously it's available for all major races and also combination of races as well. And other information includes households, total housing units, tenure. And the neat thing about the census is a complete count of all the people. It's not a survey, it's a complete count. So this data can be tabulated to any specific geography of your choosing, starting because the data is available at the census block geography. And finally, group quotas population data is also available. Group quotas are people that do not live in a household, but like, for example, people that are living in dormitories, military barracks, or incarcerated people in prisons. These are group quotas population. This whole data. So finally, what does the data tell us? The census data tells us where the population is going and the distribution of population across the state, nation, or the cities. And finally, the racial composition of cities, counties, and neighborhoods information as well. And I'm going to pass it back to Deputy Secretary Fleckenstein to go over migration information.
So Al and I wanted to share with you a little bit about some information that we've received since 2020. So the U.S. Census Bureau annually does an American Community Survey. Those surveys allow for some population estimates to come in. Population estimates then help us determine all of the things we've talked about with the census, infrastructure, schools, those types of things. But we've been kind of following the American survey, American Community Survey, so that we can look at kind of some trends that we're seeing as we start preparing for the 2030 census. And so what we do know is that the census doesn't provide us migration information. However, the community surveys do. And what we do know is that most of the migration into Maryland is not necessarily from other states, it's from international migration. The ACS also provides county to county migration to see where in Maryland people are moving from and to within the state. And that allows us to see certain patterns, such as increased population from Montgomery County to Frederick County. About 3,200 people since 2020 we have seen, and this is estimates obviously, have moved from Montgomery County to Frederick County. We've also seen increased migration from Prince George's County into Charles County, so about 3,400 people. So as we get closer to the 2030 census, it will give us a better idea of just how those trends are tracking and then potentially what we're going to see in the 2030 census. I've put a link on this document where you can find additional county-to-county migration, and we can certainly send you that link as well. Now, when we do talk about population estimates that are produced by the U.S. Census Bureau, those numbers are not used in redistricting. However, they do show us those patterns of growth and migration. And we are able to see how much individual counties are growing in that period of time between 2020 and 2030. And since the 2020 census, what we've seen, and we'll go back to Frederick County here, is that Frederick County has seen the most growth with about an additional 27,000 people moving into into Frederick County. Montgomery County also has had a great deal of growth, growing about 20,000 individuals. And then third on that list is Anne Arundel County, which has grown approximately an additional 10,000 individuals. Now, again, these figures won't factor into redistricting. However, they will impact precinct boundaries. And that's why MDP is following these and has to track these. We are currently in the process of reaching out to about 6 local jurisdictions from whom we have not received updated precinct boundaries for. We have them for most of the state, but there are about 6 jurisdictions that either haven't sent updated precinct boundaries or have them posted online, but haven't sent what are called the shape files to the State Board of Elections or to our office so that we can maintain those maps. Once we have all of those maps, it is our hope to be able to do those precinct overlays and have those maps ready to go as we enter the election year of 2026. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Al to go through a little bit of information about Maryland's growth between 2010 and 2020 to give you that census data that we would be looking at as part of this endeavor. Al?
Thank you. This slide and the next couple of slides basically show an overview of the 2020 census in relation to the 2010 census. I'm going to highlight a few key statistics here. As you can see on the screen, Maryland's population grew by about a little over 400,000, which is a 7% increase within that decade. And Howard County's annual growth rate, growth rate, percentage increase of about 16% is the second highest in the state. Both Anne Arundel County and Baltimore County's population increased by about 50,000 in the last decade. And on the next slide, we have some information on some of the counties here. Prince George's County had the largest increase in population last decade, a little over 100,000, followed by Montgomery County, about 90,000, a little over 90,000. And Frederick County by far had the largest percentage change in the last decade at about 16.4%. And I also want to highlight Western Maryland. That region, including Allegheny, Garrett, and Washington as a whole, lost about a little under 1,000 population in the last decade. And Allegheny and Garrett counties have been losing population, not this past decade, but historically in the last 3-4 decades as well. And lastly, on the next slide, so these are the Eastern Shore counties, and there is hardly any growth in these counties. The growth that happened in the last decade is a little under 8,000, which is less than 2% of Maryland's growth in the last decade. So I will pass it back on to Deputy Secretary Fleckenstein. Oh, wait, let me talk about this as well. So what do we do with this population? The census population, as you know, is used for redistricting. And before we use this population, Maryland's law requires us to adjust for prison population. Basically, we are going to be counting the people that are incarcerated in the prisons at their last known residential address. If those persons in the prison facilities are from out of state, we count them at the facility. But this data has to be adjusted, which Maryland Department of Planning does and prepares a data set that is used for redistricting. And a couple of important things to note about redistricting. The precincts have to nest within the legislative and congressional districts. So it's easy for people to vote for the representatives. And lastly, the Department of Planning maintains and updates all the district and precinct maps that are drawn. And we have them posted on the website, and we also have an interactive map that people can use to find out which precinct they vote in by typing in an address. So with that, I pass it back to Deputy Secretary Fleckenstein to finish the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. So at the end of the 2020 census, we were able to do a final report. And essentially, that shows all of the data that came in through the 2020 census showed that there were 6,177,224,000. As Al mentioned, a 7% increase from 2010. But what does that mean and what's so important and what is this presentation all about? That bottom line number. This means that each congressional district drawn in the state of Maryland must have 772,153 individuals in it. Congressional districts, unlike legislative districts, have to be as close to exact as possible. And with that, I'm just posting the emails and contact information for Al and myself so that you are aware of how to get a hold of us. Obviously, you have our contact information, and Jeremy can provide it to you as well. And I'm just going to put this slide up here for those watching on YouTube as to when the next meeting is going to be and when public participation will start, which is this coming Friday at 4 p.m., the 14th at 4 p.m. Those wishing to provide verbal testimony must register at the link provided on the website, redistricting.maryland.gov. And they will register if they would like to provide verbal in-person testimony. If they want to join by Zoom, they can join by Zoom and register and just indicate that they do not want to provide verbal testimony. But there will also be a link that is posted that will take you live to the YouTube channel to just simply watch it live without registering. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Senator Alsobrooks.
Thank you so much. And I see that that Senate President Ferguson has his hand raised. Mr. President, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, for the secretary, or for the deputy secretaries, just generally the number that was referenced, the 771,153 is 772,153. Is that the same number that we had from the 2020 when we did the 2020 census?
Yes, it is.
So just is the data that was referenced? I know the American Community Survey data was referenced in the possibility that there was are we using different data than would be used from 2020? Is it updated with ACS data to have in the case that there were a new map, would that be updated census data that would be incorporated?
No, sir. We can only use the census data. The population estimates are estimates. They don't have enumeration where people are either doing self-response or or having a census taker come to their door to get all of the addresses covered. It's more of a broader survey to people in those areas and looking at other data that's coming in, but it's not as scientific as the census. So in any kind of redistricting, you would have to use the last verified census data, which would be from 2020.
And that's what the LRAC used previously for the maps that were considered. Is that correct from planning?
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. The other last question, there was a mention of the precinct data. In the event of any change of any map at any point, that precinct data, I believe currently has to have already been set for the election for local jurisdictions, for local boards of election. Is that an act? Do we believe that that precinct data is set and locations have been selected for the 26 cycle?
For most counties, we believe so. But we are aware of 6 counties that we do not have, nor does the State Board of Election have updated precincts from them. And a couple of them are relatively large counties.
If there were, so the 18 that have, in the case that there were a change, it would require those local boards of election to re-precinct their counties, redraw their maps, refine precinct locations. Is that correct or no?
I don't believe so for congressional seats, because the precincts are through the legislative and councilmanic districts. So I don't believe that the congressional, if there were to be a change in congressional maps, that would impact local boards of elections precincts.
But just to be clear, because each district,
that though.
Just because each district has to be to one person, there are cases in which we experienced in 2020, in fact, a number of places where you have to split a precinct in thirds or in half in order to get a balance to the one person. And so under my understanding had been when we did it previously, that splitting a precinct in half is necessary to get to make it constitutional, which would mean it could be a precinct could be in one congressional district previously, and half of the precinct would be in a different area, or would be in a different congressional district.
Yes, sir. And I'm happy to reach out to the State Board of Elections and our Assistant Attorney General to get absolute clarification on that for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. This actually concludes our first very brief. This is our.
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman. I just wanted a general question that's not related to planning.
Okay.
If we, I just want to get a general sense from our organizational, as it's getting into the holiday season, how many meetings are we hoping to schedule? Do we have a sense of, are we going to be in each congressional district? How should we, I just want to make sure that, this, I think is a very, very serious topic that we have to be very thoughtful about, as I know each and every one of you are. Certainly when we did this before with former Attorney General Frosch's guidance, we had to go to all parts of the state in order to maintain that constitutional validity as we did the LRAC process. And so I just want to get a sense of how many are we anticipating and what will residents be responding to? So in the case that Marylanders are providing opinion, are they providing whether or not they want to redistrict or not, or whether what a map looks like or not? Just what are we hoping to get feedback about?
So the next couple of meetings will be virtual meetings. The next one will be on the 14th of November. It's going to be at 4 p.m. And then from there, a decision will be made about how many in-person meetings will happen. And in those meetings, we'll be soliciting feedback from Marylanders regarding whether or not they want to see this redistricting happen, how they feel about it. So we'll be getting the feedback from Marylanders.
And will they have maps to review, or will there be product for Marylanders to respond to?
And Kristen, maybe you can talk about what they'll be sending out.
So my understanding is that no maps are going to be drawn until feedback is received from Marylanders, and that it's not as if this group is going to be sitting down and drafting new maps to run by Marylanders to get their feedback on. It's mainly to get feedback on whether or not the process should continue to look at reviewing the current boundaries and whether or not they should be redrawn mid-cycle. So there aren't any new maps to be shown, but we do have the current maps available that we are happy to share in any way that you would like us to.
If I may, it sounds like Madam Deputy Secretary, I think it's we experienced in the 21 process, certainly heard from residents that there were very different opinions once they saw maps, that there were very strong opinions about representation once people saw what district they would or would not be in and where that included. So it's difficult for people, I think, to provide information if they don't have an idea of what an alternative could look like.
So there won't be any decisions. They will be able to see. We wouldn't make any decision without Marylanders being able to see the maps.
Okay, so there will be maps that are available for people to respond to before we conclude in this. Okay.
Yes.
It would be my understanding, I'm sorry, Senator, it would be my understanding that once the commission receives that information and has that general sense of what Marylanders want and what Maryland should be doing moving forward or not, that then there would be another process that would have to begin where the commission would essentially look at redrawing maps. That would probably then lead to additional meetings, but I think that the intent of this first round of meetings, for lack of a better term, is to seek that guidance from Marylanders as to how best to move forward.
And do we know is there a written submission available as well if somebody cannot attend on a Friday afternoon? Are there mechanisms for people to participate in this process that are beyond the appearing on Friday afternoons?
Yes, sir. There is an email that people can send information to. They can attach suggested maps, even if they wanted to. That email is grac@maryland.gov. It is posted on the website, and we certainly could add information near that to indicate that individuals can send information through that email. On the invitation, that registration that was sent out for Friday's meeting, it does indicate that if you would like to provide verbal testimony, that you must register and sign up through the Zoom platform. But that if you don't want to provide verbal testimony, you can email grac@maryland.gov for more information or to provide input.
Okay. Thank you. That generally I just want to clarify that there will be a process for determining whether or not we were getting feedback for whether or not generally to move forward on whether a process should happen, and then this commission will have a discussion about that, and then there will be a process of maps being produced that will have Marylanders will be able to react to those maps, and then presumably there would be a recommendation by this body whether or not to move forward with the alternative maps that are out there after that secondary process. Is that an accurate reflection?
That is my understanding,
Yes.
yes, sir.
And the timeline do we have for all of this to get done in the midst of this?
Well, it's gonna be-
Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're hoping to get this all done pretty quickly. You know, we're going to be moving quickly. As I mentioned, we're going to have a couple of meetings before Thanksgiving, and then we'll just it'll be determined how many meetings after that. But you know, obviously it's a you know, urgent and process, it's urgent to have it happen, and it's, you know, we'll have more information about how long.
Okay, the final question is, are we going to have the Attorney General present, the sitting Attorney General, or folks to talk through the legal issues? I mean, I think this is certainly within our members, this is one of the big questions, particularly with other states and what's happening, kind of the legal implications. Is that a part of the conversation at all?
You know, we'll you know, we'll talk to him, and I'm sure that there's a place for him to be a part of the process, and we can get back to you about that when we meet on the 14th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Senator. I just briefly, just remind the body briefly that, you know, the last time we did this, and I think 2020, technology has advanced since then. So when we're discussing how many meetings we're going to have or locations, I think one of the things that my committee has benefited most from, as well as the House, is the Zoom, because while many people, and I'm not sure how not practical / important. I don't want to say important, but while in-person meetings are great, we have been getting a lot of feedback from the state in our hearings as far as in the committee via Zoom. I think that the technology provides much more of a broader sample of our electorate than simply going place to place to place. So I do hope that we take that in mind when it comes to, it's not just mere convenience, but allows individuals to participate from home, from work, whereas, you know, as the Senate President said, taking off on a Friday. So I do hope that we do take that in consideration when it comes to not only the number of meetings, because again, when we have these Zoom meetings, they can be open and obviously and timely, but also, you know, picking in-person meetings versus, you know, the Zoom meetings, because I do believe the in-person meetings can be somewhat exclusionary, whereas these Zoom meetings do open it up for more people to participate. And I know it's a relatively new process, but I believe both House and the Senate have gotten it down to a science, and I hope that we do take that into consideration. And I do know that that as far as the legal issues, I've done a great deal of research in the past week or so about, you know, the local rulings and as well as the, you know, the Supreme Court rulings. And a lot of that thing can be requested from the library, because I think one of the questions is going to be, you know, after the Attorney General, whether the Attorney General gets involved or not, is our input in how we view the legality and the approach. So again, at the end of the day, we are the five individuals that are put on here. So regardless of who says what, where, and when, we're going to be the ones to make the determination. So I do know the information is available as far as getting the legal background from the 1972 ballot to the 1969 and the failed, I think, 1971, you know, amendments to the Congressional Congress to find out just where we stand here today. So thank you, ma'am.
And Mr. Morris?
Yeah, obviously with the creation of this advisory commission for the redistricting, it's seen as a problem with the districts that are out there. Has anybody stated what the actual problem is that we're looking to fix? I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm all in here, but I'm trying to figure out what the problem is.
Well, I mean, I think this is an iterative process where we're going to be hearing from Marylanders. And we will be providing information and looking at our maps and having Marylanders weigh in about the configuration of the maps in our state. So we're going to be hearing from them.
Okay.
Okay, so if no further questions, this concludes our organizational meeting today. And we will see everyone back on the 14th at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Madam Chair.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.